Okay, welcome to episode number 124. We are talking with Ilana Wechsler on this, a good friend of mine of Green Arrow Digital. She's been running a digital marketing agency solely focused on AdWords. A good friend of mine. She's helped really all of the people in my circle with their AdWords. She's been a consultant for us. She's really one of those persons who knows her stuff. She's a speaker in the rounds of the digital marketing world. She's had a coaching group now that she works with other similar agencies, and we really had a great conversation. A lot of interesting stuff came out of this. You know, AdWords is a very important thing for a lot of businesses, and this episode goes through a lot of the common mistakes that people make. So if you are using an agency, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're an agency, you want to learn more about AdWords, this is a great episode to listen to. With that, we're off to talk to Ilana.
So Ilana, I am so happy to speak with you on the topic of AdWords because it is a monster of a monster.
It's true, but a great monster.
Yes, and it does make a lot of people a lot of money.
Exactly.
And it can also take your money and throw it all down the garbage, because we know that Google is the ultimate ATM machine that sometimes will pay out.
I like to say, you know, when you do it right, it goes from being like a slot machine where you put in the money and you don't know what you're going to get out, to like a vending machine where it's working well. You put in $1 and you get hopefully more than $1 back.
Yes, but you have to do it right.
You have to do it right. And there are lots of ways to do it wrong.
Yeah. Well, and so this podcast episode is based off of things that you and I have had discussions before. And last time we were in Santa Barbara together and hanging out, and we talked about, the things that you're doing. So I want to go through sort of the levels of pieces of this business that we need to think about, and okay. I'm gonna walk through like my thoughts on this, and then maybe you could add some flavor, because I think the people who are listening who've tried AdWords, or maybe they're an agency in their AdWords, or maybe they're going to start AdWords, or maybe they've had AdWords campaigns that don't work. Like, we have to think, like, what are the things that are like key things that are going to break? Because I think it's easy to some degree for people to understand the concept of, you know, running keywords and all that stuff, but there's a lot more to it. Now, I want to start with the structure of AdWords campaigns with keyword groups, right? Now, there's two types of AdWords groups when people work. Sometimes we work with SCAGs, which is basically small AdWords groups, right? And then we can do more larger things. And there's display, and there's other things. So maybe we should talk about learning how not to just have one ad group, but really to separate it out. And there's obviously going to be strategy around separating your AdWords, and also we're doing now, you know, YouTube. And so I think, could you talk a little bit about just basic structure of an AdWords campaign, to think through, like, hey, you know, generally this is my strategy, like, to set it up?
Yeah. Sure. So basically, Google make it really easy for advertisers to get an ad live, right? And in making it easy doesn't mean that it's correct. So if you follow all their default settings and all the sort of recommended ones, you know, in bracket recommended, you're going to set it up wrong. So that's, I guess, a common misconception or trap that people fall into. And structure is critical to the success of a campaign, and you're nodding because you know firsthand, right? So I mean, I've been doing this for, you know, over 7 years now, and I've got to a point in, you know, running so many client accounts that honestly, it might sound a bit arrogant, but it's true. Like, all I have to do is ask someone one question, and if they say yes to it, I don't even need to look in their account. I know exactly what they've done wrong. And the question is, did you set up your account yourself without any help or somebody who knows what they're doing? And if they say yes, then I know exactly what they've done. And they've created one campaign, and they've created one ad group, and they've thrown about 300 keywords in that one ad group, and they're wondering why it's not working.
And right, and that's what I was saying, is that you have to stop and think like how even computers work. Like it's just, you can't multitask something out because it will never catch everything.
Correct. And most people like one day I stood back and I thought, hang on a minute, like ad groups are called ad groups for a reason, because that is the ad that is shown for the keywords in that group. So if you think about it from a user's point of view, they're Google searching plastic surgeon New Jersey, for example, right? All they see is one ad. They don't see the 300 keywords that you're bidding on. They don't see how you structured your campaign. So if your ad that they see doesn't match what they've typed into Google, they're just not going to click on it. You know, it's just that simple. So that's why creating ad groups with themes around what are related to each other, then it's really important, because it's all about ad relevance. So if I typed in let's go for dentists, because I've done so many dental accounts, like dental implants New Jersey, for example, but I'm with my 300 keywords, one of my ads in there is about teeth whitening. Well, no, I'm not looking for teeth whitening, I'm looking for implants. So it needs to be themed in such a way that the ad that is shown is relevant to what somebody's typed in.
Right. And it also, this is so very common that we see when we peel back people's ad accounts, is that they've got very, very few ads. They're trying to jam everything in as much as they can into one ad set. And so you have to really break it out and into different components. And that's right. Google will sort of will give you like, here's the simple basics of what you should do. And then people stop. And they're like, I put all my keywords in them, but I'm not getting, I'm like, no. The point is that each one of these theories of segmentation has to be built properly. All right, so we've got that.
You mentioned single keyword ad group. So that's the extreme example of structure.
Right.
For the sole purpose of enforcing ad relevance. So you would have one ad group with the keyword dental implants, and a different ad, and so the ad tied to that is about implants, and then a different ad group for teeth whitening, and that ad is teeth whitening, and that forces the correct ad to be shown for the correct keyword.
Yes, and we've done both. So you can have 300 ad sets built for one campaign with 300 variations. It's like, so you have to get somewhere in the middle, and this is where you have to really think, like, there's some things in the middle, and we'll go through that. This is just a beginning. So we talked about that. We need different ad groups. You can go to the extreme of having each keyword have its thing, or we can do a group, which may be a more modest group. Next, the biggest problem ever: no tracking. No tracking, right? And we see this, and I literally was at a customer today, and we talked to them. We built their campaign, but they had another third party to interface with, and the third party didn't give us the variant URL at the end that comes from their tracking system for this ticket stuff. And we're like, another wasted year of tracking nothing because we didn't get the URL parameters set up. That wasn't our fault. I mean, again, even they said, like, look, it wasn't, they didn't give us the right information. But so there's conversion rates, there's drop-off rates, there's click-through rates, there's registration rates, there's interaction rates. I mean, it goes on and on and on about tracking the stuff. So talk to me a little bit about that, where people don't necessarily think about all the KPIs. And for that, people who don't know what KPIs means, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just kidding. Key performance indicators, which are just another word for things that we should look at.
Right? Yeah. I guess, like, that's the thing. Like, Google is quite deceptive. Like, they're just trying to make it so easy for people to spend money and get an ad live that they don't make it obvious to people that they need to go the next step and be able and to set up the conversion tracking. It's like in Google Analytics. So they want you to install that code, but then people don't set up goals in Google Analytics to track the effectiveness of it. So what ends up happening, and probably literally the most common thing that people say to me, is I've spent all this money and I've got no idea if it worked or not. Well, yeah, they haven't set up conversion tracking. They don't realize that actually you can put, certain code on certain pages that will feed that information back into Google AdWords that you will then be able to attribute to your ads. So some people say, well, why would I bother doing that? I'm going to get the leads anyway. Why would I want to? And the reason is, well, first of all, you can justify your spend with Google. So you spend $1,000 and you made two. But more than that, you'll be able to see which ad led to that person actually contacting you. You'll be able to see which keyword, what search term, were they on a mobile, were they on a desktop, all this valuable information that you can draw on the insights from and learn from and go, okay, well, desktop's not really working that well. I'm going to reduce my bids for that. I'm going to increase my bids for mobile, and these keywords aren't working. So let's stop wasting that money and pour that money into the keywords that are working so we can double down on what is working and stop what's not working. So you just don't have that level of transparency if you set up conversion tracking. And I'm sure, like you, we set up multiple forms of conversion tracking. Everything they do online, that's a form of success. We track phone calls, our Google trackable number. So if they click on, so we had a lawyer client, we've still got for a long time, and that's quite a desktop type inquiry, you know, like somebody Google searches on their desktop, they go to the website, they look on the phone number on their screen and they go, oh, okay, I'm going to call these guys. But that's a change of device. So we can create a dedicated number just for AdWords people that will swap it and feed that information back so we can see that as well.
Yeah, and conversion tracking is the number one thing we see that is hampering the real issue, which is not able to even, it's like literally without a flashlight going outside of your house in the dark. Like, where are you going?
And then getting in the car and driving without your headlights on.
Yeah. So the conversion tracking is another thing you have to think about. So let's talk about the thing that annoys me the most, which is with clients, we speak with them and we go, okay, great. So you sell oil heat, or you do plastic surgery, as you mentioned before, and you've run your own campaign. And then I type in plastic surgery training company and I pull up their ad. And then I type in worst plastic surgery company near me and I pull up their ad. And then I type in plastic surgery, you are the worst, or any related term. And we figured out that they've not done any negative keywords for anything on their account. And they're just getting handed tons and tons of non-valuable lead traffic, which is really, to you and I, the biggest time wasting, potentially for the client, the biggest money wasting piece of this whole entire business. And it's the saddest thing because it is impactful that people can't even see, because until they see what they're being searched for, and then they throw up. And then they're like, oh my God, like, yes, you are being found for everything you don't want to be found for. And this is
not
Google.
to mention the reputation management of it, you know, worst dentist in New Jersey. I mean,
well, right. So, but what I'm saying is what ends up happening, and you've got a point there, but I think more importantly, what I was saying is, if you think about what Google's trying to do, they are going to skip over this because, hey, it's related and your keyword's in there, so maybe we could let your ad go up and float for that, because we'll just take the $1 billion that we make from just nobody doing this, fixing their negative keywords a year. Or maybe it's more than $1 billion, maybe it could be more, but I think that's where a lot of the pain comes from. So talk about that just for 2 seconds, because I think that people get the point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, people don't realize, like, they bid on keywords that they want to show for, but they don't realize that you can go the next step and prevent your ads for showing for certain things. So obviously you can control some level of reputation management of, you know, and I still do this all the time. I wrote an email recently to people, you know, saying, you know, worst dentist Bondi, and showed 4 ad spots being occupied. I'm sure if we did the Google search now, it would come up bad dentist, you know, insert suburb, all this kind of stuff. So jobs, internship, you know, like, so you're a business looking for more customers, you're not looking to hire staff, you got people searching for jobs, right? So that's another kind of classic keyword. Resume, you know, all that, salary, you know, all these are common negative keywords that lots of service-based businesses should have added generically to every campaign that they're running in their account. So part of the ongoing management, as you know, is trawling through these what's called search term reports to pick out these negative keywords that need to be added. Now, I will say, like, I'm sure you will agree with me, like, it's literally inconceivable to think of every possible negative keywords.
Right.
It's kind of like playing the game of whack-a-mole, you know, but the point is that you can't take your eye off the ball because, you know, you can't think of it. You've got to, you know, I'd say, you know, every couple of days or once a week at least, have a look through these search terms and make sure that, you know, you're not showing up for things that you don't want to be.
And let me tell everyone a sneaky hint if you're working with an agency. When you talk to them about AdWords, ask them, how big is your negative keyword list for this topic? If you don't get a response, move on. Because the process of building that negative keyword list is just enormous. And we know this because we're in a very high click zone. We're doing plastic surgery in Manhattan, and those are 50, 60, 70, 80. And believe me, if you think you're really on top, DWI in Manhattan, you know, for lawyers, it's like $300 a click. So
$300 a click.
It's, yes, believe me, it's crazy. But I mean, there's a reason why because the market's bid up, you know, because there's a lot of lawyers in Manhattan. You wouldn't believe it, but there are.
That's
right.
Shocking to me. I wouldn't have thought that.
So let's go the opposite direction and talk about, and maybe you can clarify this, exact match. Does this even exist anymore? Because now we've got, like, you know, negatives and whatever. Now we clear out the negatives, we get rid of all the silliness. You know, there's usually a standard list of negatives that we put into everything, and then we build upon it. But now we talk about, like, exact match, like plastic surgery NJ, right? So people are like, I just want that term. But what ends up happening is that no one types that in. You think they would. What they type in is, I need blah, blah, blah. And so it's all long tail stuff. So, I mean, talk to me just a few seconds about that, about making the mistake of being too concerned about having specific keywords and only those keywords.
Yeah, so I kind of like to think of it like layers of the onion, right? So you can, also classic mistake number, whatever we're up to now, is that people just type in the keywords, and by default that's broad match. And broad match means Google's going to pretty much decide lots of unrelated things that your ad will show for. So as I said, if we think about the layers of the onion, right, in the center of the onion, they're kind of like your bullseye keywords, and let's say they're exact match. So as you say, plastic surgeon NJ, you put square brackets around that, and that's you saying to Google, hey Google, I want my ad to show for this and only this. If somebody types in best plastic surgeon NJ, your ad cannot be shown, theoretically, so only that. So the problem with that is it's very limited search volume. And actually this year, I think it was this year or late last year, Google announced that their exact match type is no longer strictly exact. So that we joke in the industry, it's exact-ish, right? There are variations to exact match, and that's because Google realized that there's some like crazy statistic that 20% of all Google searches worldwide, and you can imagine the billions of search queries that happen every day, every minute, 20% of all those search queries have never been searched for before, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. So that's why Google changed their exact match policy to allow for some very, very slight variations or deviations on that. Okay.
So that's interesting, because you'd think, like, Google would say that you can't do exact match because that's going to screw up my money. I want more money. Give me some more, right? That's Google's policy, is like, we'll take your money because you put in this keyword, but we think that the keyword's kind of related to these other keywords. So we're going to give you a click on that, even if it wasn't. It's like,
that's right.
You know.
So the next layer out of the onion is what's called phrase match with inverted commas around it. So you'd have plastic surgeon NJ, and that allows for somebody to type in, you know, if they type in best plastic surgeon NJ, your ad would show, but plastic surgeon in New Jersey, it probably wouldn't, although with the variations, they've loosened their policies on it. We use in our agency, and I'm not sure if you do, Matt, as well, but we use the mod broad or the modified broad match with the pluses, you know. But I guess common mistake and misconception people make is that if they don't put any syntax around the keyword, they don't realize that it's broad match. And we have audited numerous of ad accounts that were doing this. So, you know, as I said, they were one campaign, one ad group, 300 keywords in that one ad group, and they're all broad match. And I just go like this, oh my God, what am I going to see when I look at the search term report?
So
and I'm horrified.
The double hex would be no negatives and all broad matched. And we see that every day. Every day we see these campaigns that come in and we're like, well, here's the problem. You've done absolutely nothing to curtail Google from taking every penny from you. So let's start. And this is where we go to work and you go to work. It's very simple. You have to actually think and put this is the funny thing about AdWords. It is rocket science, but it's a very learnable science, which I'm glad that you, and we'll get to this at the end, have got a course to talk about, which I want to get to as quickly as possible. And I think this is super important. So let's continue, because there's a couple more things I want to cover, because I know that there's a lot of topics, but I want to cover the main ones so that people get it.
Okay.
Ad extensions to me, right?
Wait, can I just say an example based on that last thing that we were talking about?
Oh, okay, sure.
I recently audited a dental account, and that classic situation came up of, you know, no negs, all broads, right? And all I had to do was hop on the call with the client and show them the search term report. Now, this is a dental account that's in Australia, so you can imagine it's a very local business, right? Someone's not going to travel from California to New Jersey for a dentist, right? Yes. So their search term report revealed possibly every state in Australia that their ad was shown for and clicked on, number one. Number two, they were showing up for dog and pet dental treatments as well. Yep. So that kind of stuff. So they were horrified. And this is north of $10 a click. It all just adds up. Does not take long.
We've had so many of those throw up discussions where we show people like, look what you're being found for. And that ends the whole conversation. Then we go to work. And we know this. And I think you and I, so let's talk about ad extensions, because look, there's a battle in this dialogue where, yes, you can use ads, can be these 2 lines, 3 lines, 5 lines. You can see these when you start to pop them up. You say, search for something around you that is local. You'll see that there's sometimes people put a lot of ad extensions into their ads. Some people do a little ad extension. And I think the theory is maybe it's improved visibility, improved click-through rates, but at the same time, it depends on if everybody else is doing it. You want to sort of look at them and say, let's do the opposite. So I think there's some theory around that. Maybe you just give us 2 seconds on that.
Look, I'm a big fan of ad extensions. I think especially for mobile devices, they're really, really important. I was recently searching for something on my mobile. So I've got one of these big phones, you know, my husband teases me, it's like a mini iPad. It's one of these iPhone Pluses something, you know, and I was searching for something, and, you know, being an advertiser, I can't help but always have that hat on my head. I see an ad come up, and due to all the ad extensions they had enabled, it basically took up the entire screen on my phone. One advertiser. Now, I don't know, like, I think that's pretty good. Like, that is prime real estate on a phone. It was a very mobile type thing that I was searching for, and they're dominated. Like, they've got my entire screen. So I'm inclined to be in favor of them. Google likes them because you get a good click-through rate. They reward you with it with a good quality score, so I get lower cost per click. So I don't know, I'm a big fan of them, yet lots of people don't use them, and I think possibly they don't know they exist. And yeah, I'm a big fan.
Right, so ad extensions, if you're listening or watching this, are basically, and I could probably pop up an example, which is, it's just the different parts of an ad. Could be a phone number, could be an address, could be an offer. There's all sorts of things you can put into the ad itself to extend the amount of lines it has. Now, as I said before, I think you're right. I think generally, especially on a mobile phone, more the better, or the more specific the better to what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm in agreement with you there, and I totally think that you've got this, sort of picked, which is that a lot of people starting on a mobile phone. And the computer, you start to see a bigger, broad, if that's what I'm talking about. Like, you're on a computer, you can see a whole bunch of big ad extensions. You might see one that's really super simple. It's like $6.99, click here. Like, sometimes those little ones work too. We found that it's a mix of some of the ones that have got, good calls to action. So I think though the bigger ones with more meat to them, there's like 16 different variants you can use. So you have to think like what you're going to do. It's definitely an indispensable tool though to have that running.
Yeah, I mean, look, having said that, I have audited accounts before that they aren't even using all the possible to descriptions. So, like if the baseline text ad is 3 headlines and 2 descriptions now, and they weren't using all possible real estate and no ad extensions. So by all intents and purposes, it was quite a small ad. But yeah, their click-through rates were good and their conversion rates were good. So, I mean, obviously we didn't have a split test between one that had everything enabled.
That's what so that was, you're leading me on to what you need to do with your ads is split test them, right? So that's another thing that people don't do. I literally have never seen anybody come to us and say, oh, these are my split testing strategies. I'm like, because no one's ever done it. Until we say, well, we have to split test the ads to see which ones work better. They're like, oh, well, that sounds like a great idea. So,
and then use the insights from the split test in other forms of your marketing, maybe like your newsletter or a flyer you're sending out. I mean, that's I guess where I feel the beauty of Google AdWords comes in. It's like the ultimate testing ground. You are plucking out of the crowd your ideal customer. They've literally gone to Google, taken the initiative to type in something they're searching for. You've eliminated the variable of, is this somebody who wants what I offer? You know that they do. They've literally just typed it into Google, and now you can see what messaging moves them, motivates them, and it compels them to take action.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the next thing. 6 to 7 out of 10 of our clients, and we come on board, who are coming out as, hey, can you fix our AdWords? And just like you, their ads are going to, guess where? One page, the home page. So talk to me about relevance, the landing page strategy, because we don't even have a discussion until we go, what are your landing pages? And if they say, what are landing pages? Well, that's a good start for us because we're going to be basically like crushing it because we know that they're doing, which is just sending everything. And by the way, this does happen to have one other variant, which is that if it is a single page website or a microsite, it does make sense to send it to a single page. So I can't say in all the cases, but in most cases we find about half to 60% of the people are really just sending stuff to the homepage and praying that people will take action.
Well, they're hoping and praying that people will find the right navigation and know where they want to end up. So as you can probably tell, I've done a lot in the dental space, so you're bidding on, teeth whitening, they send them to the homepage in the hope that they're then going to navigate to the menu to find where teeth whitening information is, as opposed to just sending them straight there, Yeah. But I don't know about you, but like, I do find that we had mixed responses with strictly landing pages, and that's because in the dental space, and it obviously depends on the industry, but maybe you've done a lot in the medical space. I don't know about your experience, but people want to read around a little bit about them, like it's dental, got someone fiddling in your mouth. You kind of want to know who they are and what training. They go to the about page, and I don't know if you have found the same thing in the medical space.
Here's the thing. Yes, it would be very specific when you're talking about surgery, radiology, gastrology. I mean, there's all the sort of like larger, more, but for med spas and for, they just want to take the offer. Their only concern is, ooh, $100 off. Cool. Click. And,
okay.
It's at the point where I think landing page strategy is actually going inside for us, meaning that, and then this might help sort of broaden discussion. I think there's a relevance to continuing the dialogue with the client. So in the cases where we're working with a chiropractor or somebody who's maybe in pain, we'll actually take them to a pain management or pain evaluation tool. So there's not an offer, it's more of a, in pain, blah, 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 click here to get you. And then they take them to a pain evaluation. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of the what's the journey of the client, whether they're going for getting plumbing or they're getting this, like you got to take them through a journey. Maybe that's more appropriate to where to put the traffic.
Look, I'm a big believer in not sending it to the homepage, like absolutely. But I think in my experience, having a dedicated landing page, which is unnavigable, like it's impossible to navigate anywhere else on the website. We ended up having bad like results from that. So we still create landing pages, but they have the ability to still navigate around the site as well. So I don't know, but that's just from the dental space. I don't know about the med spas and whatever, but that's in my experience.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It depends. If we're doing plastic surgery, they want to be able to move around because they want to see the doctor. I totally get it. Yeah, and even if it's like I think a lot of people just want to find out, like, they're coming from an ad, so they're cold traffic, so they want to have some. You could put some of that on the landing page, but I think what happens is that if they're going to go through that process, they'll come through as a lead. If they're going to go that deep into the website, they're probably going to come through as a lead eventually if they've found what they're looking for. So as long as I think if you're right, if you can get what the customer needs simply to them.
Yeah, and it's about many people don't realize they don't actually transport themselves into the shoes of that end user. You know, they don't know who this business is. They've just Google searched something, and what would be the user experience for them of where they end up. You know, so they don't realize that. So that's why they send people to the homepage, or they can decide. Well, it's like, no, think about what they've just done. They've just searched for some, I don't know, mummy makeover, or I don't know, I'm thinking about plastic surgery or something. Right? Like, why send them to a homepage that's going to talk about other stuff? Just send them straight to the mummy makeover page, you know?
So let's talk about the thing that we see a lot, which is people don't manage their geographic territory very well. Like they kind of just do a radius, or they kind of just spray and pray. So we go into we're like, you could go down and get to the exact zip code for these ads, plus you could actually do demographic stuff. Like, talk to me a little bit about refining the ad sets, because a lot of people, I think, just say, just give me a 30-mile radius, and we're like, but what about those towns that are very, very destitute, that you don't want to have that client come to see you? Or they just, and I see this all the time with people not excluding, which drives me nuts, major areas. And so a lot of people we're very close to Manhattan, New York, but no one's coming from Manhattan to New Jersey. So a lot of the times we see these ads that have got radius, and it's touching New York just by a mile, and that takes all of Manhattan. Thank you, you got all of New York now. And it's just, talk to me a little bit about that. So your thoughts on that one?
Yeah. So there's another little sneaky, I don't know if you found, default setting that Google have when you do the location targeting. So even though you put that radius around a certain area, the recommended setting is, I can't remember at the top of my head, people in or thinking about going, or, in that target location. It's like, no, actually, I want people in this target location. So you need to physically change that setting. And I agree with your strategy of going the next step and excluding areas. So although you might think that because you haven't included Manhattan, it won't be included, well, it's an extra level of insurance, adding that as a negative location to target. But yeah, I totally agree with you.
So a little bit more in depth, and we can get into sort of like, so here's the problem. It's 8 o'clock at night, I'm clicking, and there's no one in the office, and I'm calling, and there's no one in the office. Like, this is one of those like things that just, I see it like literally no one thinks about this, but you've got to think about the time of day to run the ads, because a lot of the time these ads are hot. Like, there are people who are like, I'm ready to go, right? And so we see a lot of wasted budget of people who get phone calls at 8 o'clock, voicemails, and maybe not, and they just hang ups. Talk to me a little bit about how to fix that.
Okay, so that's what's called in the terminology and jargon an ad schedule, or schedule, I think Americans say, where, you can control when your ads will turn on and control when your ads turn off. So if you have only certain hours where people are manning the phones, you can say, hey, Google, turn my ads on at 8 o'clock when I know my admin staff are ready to take calls. And as soon as they leave the office at 5 o'clock, let's turn the ads off. Now, I do think, though, that in this day and age, many people are searching for things out of office hours. They're working all day, and it's out of office hours, that they might be, searching for a plastic surgeon they've been thinking about calling. So I think if you have a mechanism by which people can fill in a contact form out of office hours, it might be worth testing. But if you're really just going after phone calls and you're trying to get the phone to ring, then yeah, definitely turn the ads off. Or you could kind of go a little bit of an advanced technique, is bid more during those office hours and then reduce your bids actually between 5 to 10 p.m. but turn them off, I would say, from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. kind of thing. We had a dental account where they were going just after emergency work, So actually we had campaigns that turned on at 5 p.m. and turned off at 10 p.m. And because it's very expensive, and they just wanted those after hours type work where people are quite desperate and lots of people aren't open, and they didn't want to waste their budget during 9 to 5. So they conserved their budget, and they did really well doing that strategy.
Yeah, again, that's a perfect example of how to use it, effectively. All right, so a couple more things, and then we'll wrap it up. And then I want you to talk about your course and where people can find you. I wanted to kind of think through the last piece, and those are I think that's a good, I think at least maybe 10. I could go back and count it, but those are the things I think about. When I talk to clients, I'm like, here's the things I would consider when you start talking about this. One of the things I find this is that people spend too much time on trying to get underperforming keywords to perform. They're like, but this has to work. I'll put money behind it because these are my keywords. These are my keywords. We've got to get them up. They think that people are searching, but what we find out is that maybe it's time to think that this isn't the journey, because that there might be and I try and explain this to people that. And here's another thing, maybe those aren't underperforming keywords that just don't convert. Just stop them. Stop the madness, because it's not working. Yes, that's your keyword, colonoscopy, New Jersey, but we're not searching for that. We're searching for something else. It's not converting. It's got to be something else. And it's this term, whatever. And so talk to me just a little bit about that, because that's one of the things where we start to have the battles with clients. They're like, well, I'm not getting, I'm seeing your reports, but I'm not getting any clicks for this term.
Yes, yeah. I guess that's the benefit of having a third party kind of come in and manage it. Is and I know, I manage an account on a very unemotional level. I'm not emotionally attached to a keyword thinking it should convert. If it's not converting, the numbers don't lie. It's just not converting. It's too top of funnel. They're at the start of their browsing journey, and for whatever reason, yes, it's high traffic, but I'm all about quality over quantity, and that's what I think the mistake that lots of people make is they invest in SEO for things that are very top of funnel keywords that get them traffic. They spend years investing in SEO, but it doesn't necessarily make the phone ring. So as I said, I manage accounts in a very unemotional way. If this keyword is not converting, I cut it and we move on, and I'll bid what I have to bid if a keyword converts. As long as my cost per lead is at a threshold which is profitable, then I will bid if I need to $300 for a click, as you said, for DUI in New York, because it's not about that. It's the metric that me as an agency, and I'm sure you as an agency, live and breathe by, is my cost per lead. And if this keyword is generating an affordable cost per lead, then it has a business case of staying in. And if it doesn't, let's just boot it and let's get rid of it, And
I think that's a great way to wrap this up, which is that this all comes down after we've talked about all these different things you have to be considerate of when you start running your ads. Obviously, it's the cost per lead or cost per conversion that you have to think out, which is really simply money in times clicks times conversions equals X amount of leads. And is that lead, that whatever it cost is it worth your time and money? And you won't get very far if you don't do the things we talked about in this conversation, which are all the things you have to think about as you go through that, and that will get you a better cost per lead. And if your cost per lead is relative to what you're selling, then you should be okay. And if you can come up with a good strategy around keeping that cost manageable, it all works. And that's why Google is a $1 bazillion company, or whatever, how many billions they are, because this stuff does work if you do it right. And we all know that this is stuff that you are an expert at. So tell us about the course that you have, a little bit about what you're doing, because we want to save this for the end, but I wanted people to say that there is a way to do this if you want to do it on your own, or you want to teach someone on your staff, or you want to have some team member of yours. Tell us a little bit about your course and the strategy, and a little bit about your membership, and all the things that are involved in Ilana's world.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you. So yeah, I've run an agency, as you can probably tell, for quite a while now, over 7 years. So a couple of years ago, I launched a course teaching people, business owners, how to do it themselves, so they don't need an agency. So I created, I've got a whole Google ad course. I've actually got a Google ad course just for dentists, because I did, as you can probably tell, I specialized in dentists for a while. So training your staff members on how they can, admin staff, how they can do it themselves. Like, probably it takes them, like, it would take, once they're up and running, an hour a week of ongoing management, and then they don't need an agency, and how they can optimize it and stuff. And so it's all included in a membership, as well as Facebook ad course and Google Analytics, all under the one roof. Kind of like Netflix style. You pay a flat monthly fee or an annual fee, and you get access to everything and me, and the ability to ask questions. And if you sign up for the annual, I will even go into your ad accounts and audit your ad accounts and tell you, right, here's what you're doing well, here's what you're doing wrong, here's what you need to fix, and at least give you the guiding light, the best way forward. So yeah, you can check it out at teachtraffic.com, and that's where it is.
Yeah, and all this stuff will be in the show notes. And I really think that just getting the audit done is worth the price of admission, because you get the membership anyway. So you're connected to you. It's almost like, hey, you might as well just do the audit and get the membership, because then you can have access to Ilana and in her community. Great stuff, Ilana. I can't thank you enough, and I can't wait to have our next conversation, which will probably be, I want to try this in about 6 months, because I want to talk to you about some other stuff. But right now, I want to say thank you for engaging with me on this I think it's probably today the most expensive topic there is on the internet, which is AdWords management. Because if you don't do it right, you're going to pay a lot more than you need to. And we're talking the business of Google here, the biggest company on the planet, I think, at this point, or one of the biggest companies on the planet. This is how they make their money, and they make it very well. And if you don't throttle them by doing the things, or at least, and there's probably a lot more that we should have discussed, but I think this has covered the basics enough for now. But there's a lot you can do. And so please jump on her course if you're interested in AdWords management. So Ilana, I will say good day for now, as they say in Australia, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to be on. Thanks so much.